Hey guys, welcome to my top 5 NFL hot takes for the upcoming 2020 NFL season. While you're at it, please like and subscribe, and I hope you enjoy the video. My number 5 hot take is that the Colts win the AFC South. Think about it for a second. The other teams in the division are the Jags, Texans, and Titans. Firstly, the Jags are a complete joke. They had a nice draft getting CJ Henderson and K'Lavon Chaisson in the first round, but I'm afraid that Gardner Minshew and DJ Chark can't lead the team to the playoffs. Secondly, the Texans are an intriguing team. Under the leadership of Deshaun Watson and the crazy coach GM do-it-all Bill O'Brien, the Texans acquired Brandon Cooks and David Johnson via trade, but gave away top receiver DeAndre Hopkins. Without Hopkins, I don't see the Texans' offense being as dynamic as before. Brandon Cooks is a solid wide receiver, but he can't fill the big shoes left by the dominant Hopkins. Furthermore, David Johnson is 4 years past his masterful 2016 in Arizona, where he rushed for over 1,200 yards. And, after suffering multiple injuries since then, Johnson is just a shade of his former self. With an injury-prone running back, a questionable offensive line, even after trading for Laramie Tunsil, no 2020 first-round pick, and PFF's 9th worst-rated defense in 2019, the Texans are a long shot to win the AFC South. The Titans, who are the favorites to win the AFC South, have the best shot at getting to the playoffs. Their below-average defense in 2019 was rated 20th best in the NFL by PFF, still better than 12 other teams. Offensively, though, first-round pick Isaiah Wilson is just a fraction of the talent that former Titans offensive tackle and now Cleveland Browns offensive tackle Jack Conklin has. Without a premier offensive tackle manning the right side of the O-line, the heart and soul of the Titans offense and Derrick Henry may struggle to find running room. His 1,500-yard and 18-touchdown performance in 2019 will be hard to replicate. In fact, it would have been hard to replicate even if Conklin had stayed in Tennessee. Additionally, Ryan Tannehill, the Titans quarterback, after cashing in on a 4-year, $118 million contract to stay in Tennessee, may struggle to continue his fine run of form. Tannehill has had injury problems earlier in his career with the Dolphins, but more importantly, there's a high chance that Tannehill's 2019 was a one-hit wonder. How many quarterbacks suddenly have the best season of their careers at age 30 after being painfully mediocre for just under a decade? Therefore, with a high probability that Tannehill and Henry regress in 2020, this opens the door for the rising Indianapolis Colts to win the division. So what did the 7-9 Colts do to warrant a division win? Firstly, the Colts signed the ageless wonder Phillip Rivers in free agency on a 1-year, $25 million deal. Although Rivers struggled in 2019, throwing for the 5th most passing yards in his career with over 4,600 of them, alongside 23 touchdowns and 20 interceptions, Rivers played with a bad O-line in LA. In Indianapolis now, he is one of the best O-lines in the league, with Quenton Nelson and Anthony Castonazo holding down the fort. Although Rivers' offensive weapons are worse in Indianapolis compared to LA, T.Y. Hilton, second-round picks Johathan Taylor and Michael Pittman, as well as Marlon Mack, if the Colts decide to keep him, are all very capable players. Defensively, the Colts traded their 2020 first-round pick for Deforest Buckner, and then signed him to a monstrous 4-year, $84 million deal, putting a dominant defensive lineman on the Colts' defensive front. Additionally, linebacker Darius Leonard is a top NFL defender, and with Kenny Moore as well as Malik Hooker, if the Colts decide to keep him in the secondary, the Colts have a solid defensive unit. With the influx of talent in Indianapolis, it doesn't seem like a far shout for the Colts to not only be playoff contenders, but AFC South winners. My number 4 hot take is that the Miami Dolphins will have a statistically top 5 defense in 2020. Hear me out. Starting with the secondary, the Dolphins have Pro Bowl talent Xavier Howard, who is 2 years off his 7-interception effort in 2018, and although he struggled with injuries in 2019, Howard is still a shutdown corner. On the opposite end from Howard in the Dolphins' defense is none other than former Cowboys standout Byron Jones. Jones cashed in with the Dolphins during free agency, signing a lucrative 5-year, $82.5 million deal to come to South Beach. Jones is one of the premier lockdown corners in the NFL that really fits the style of man coverage used in the Dolphins' defense. However, I'm not done with the secondary yet. First-round pick Noah Igbenogany out of Auburn will be an elite slot corner for Miami, using his speed, good ball skills, and superb man coverage skills to excel in the NFL. At safety, the Dolphins will play Bobby McCain, the former 5th-round pick out of Memphis in 2015, who has blossomed into a quality NFL player. Next to him, the Dolphins can put either veteran Eric Rowe or 3rd-round pick Brandon Jones from Texas. Plus, with 2019 standout corner Nick Needham still on the roster, the Dolphins not only have a super deep secondary, but they perhaps have the best overall secondary in the league. It's easy to say that the Dolphins will be extremely difficult to throw against. Moving up front, the Dolphins spent a lot of money on adding Shaq Lawson and Emmanuel Ogbah as their main pass rushers in free agency, putting two solid veterans as replacements to the now cut Taco Charlton and the former first-round pick Charles Harris, who was traded to the Falcons. Additionally, don't count out Jason Strowbridge and Curtis Weaver from being good role players, both of which were drafted in the 5th round. Along the interior are Christian Wilkins, Miami's 2019 first-round pick, who flashed at times last year, as well as Devon Godshaw, the above-average run stuffer. Miami also used one of their second-round picks on getting Alabama defensive tackle Raekwon Davis, who can add a playmaking presence along the defensive front. Moving to the linebackers, the Dolphins are extremely underrated there. With Jerome Baker and the constantly looked-over Raekwon McMillan, the Dolphins had a solid linebacking core in 2019, but with signing former Patriots linebackers Kyle Van Noy and Landon Roberts, look for the Dolphins linebackers to be all over the field making plays. With a high-powered elite secondary, a solid defensive line, and a superb linebacker core, look for the Brian Flores-led Dolphins defense to be extremely tough to throw and run against. With a potentially dominant defense in South Beach, I don't think it's a long shot for the Dolphins to have a top 5 defensive unit in 2020. My number 3 hot take is that the Bucs won't make the playoffs. Firstly, why do they have to make the playoffs after what happened to the Cleveland Browns in 2019? This time last year, everyone was hopping on the Baker Mayfield, OBJ, and Jarvis Landry bandwagon, only for the Browns to go 6-10. Secondly, Tom Brady's overrated. He's 42, and in 2019 he had his worst season in over 10 years. Brady's 2019 saw his lowest completion percentage, touchdown passes, and second lowest passer rating in 11 seasons. That's to say, I don't think that an ancient Brady can kickstart the Bucs offense. Even Jameis Winston had a higher QBR in 2019, according to ESPN. Also, Brady doesn't fit Bruce Arians' style of play. Arians, as shown by watching Jameis Winston, loves to take 50-50 shots downfield to big, elusive, and dynamic wide receivers and Mike Evans and Chris Godwin. Brady, on the other hand, feeds off the short, intermediate passing game, constantly using checkdowns to his running backs to pick up yards, as shown by the success of James White in New England. Therefore, I think it may be difficult to balance Brady's style of conservative play with Arians' love for the 50-50 ball. Additionally, Ronald Jones and 2020 third-round pick Keyshawn Vaughn are not nearly good enough to kickstart a running game in Tampa Bay that has been nowhere to be found since the dominant days of Doug Martin. Although the Bucs have a solid O-line with Ali Marpet and 2020 first-round pick Tristan Wirfs, as well as good tight ends in Rob Gronkowski and O.J. Howard, Brady will regress in 2020 due to age. Plus, the fact that Brady doesn't really fit the Bucs scheme may keep the Bucs behind. Defensively, the Bucs' front seven are some of the best in the league, with names like Ndamukong Suh, Shaquille Barrett, Devin White, and Levante David. However, Shaquille Barrett's 19.5 sack season in 2019 that the Bucs defense relied upon is going to be near impossible to repeat in 2020 after only having 3 sacks in 2018 with the Broncos. But more importantly, the Bucs secondary is a jumble, a below-average unit that found luck at times in 2019, only spent a second-round pick on Antoine Winfield Jr. out of Minnesota to upgrade their very young secondary. For high-powered offenses in the NFC South like the Falcons and Saints, I don't think that Matt Ryan and Drew Brees will struggle finding their receivers. Furthermore, I think there are 7 or 8 teams in the NFC that are simply better than the Bucs. I think it's clear that the Packers, Seahawks, 49ers, and Vikings are considerably better. Also, I believe that both the Cowboys and Eagles will make the playoffs as they play in the easy-to-win NFC East, and both have very talented rosters with young, dynamic quarterbacks surrounded by offensive weapons. Furthermore, the Cardinals, even in the loaded NFC West, are going to be scary, going to Kyler Murray's second year with DeAndre Hopkins and first-round pick Isaiah Simmons. Furthermore, I could see the Falcons have a bounce-back year with Matt Ryan, Calvin Ridley, Julio Jones, Todd Gurley, and first-round pick A.J. Terrell, giving the Bucs a run for their money in the NFC South. Therefore, with loads of talented teams in the NFC, I could see the Bucs win somewhere between 7 and 9 games and miss the playoffs in what would surely be a wasted season. My number 2 hot take is that Josh Allen will win MVP. Allen, going into his 3rd NFL season with the Bills, has struggled earlier in his career with his completion percentage and making bonehead decisions like flinging the ball backward in the AFC wildcard game against the Texans last year. However, Allen is dynamic, explosive, and elite. He uses his legs well to extend plays. Additionally, Allen is one of the biggest arms in the NFL, making every throw on the football field possible. Some people this time last year thought that Mitch Trubisky could go on to an MVP run in 2019 after being a promising player in 2018. However, we all know how that went. Yet, with Allen, this feels different. In the offseason, the Bills gave up the farm to add Stephon Diggs to an underrated receiving core in John Brown and Cole Beasley. Additionally, 2020 draft pick Zach Moss from Utah, paired with Devin Singletary, gives Allen a nice run game that can open the pass game up. Although PFF rated the Bills' offensive line 21st best in the league last year, Left tackle Deion Dawkins did a good job protecting the blind side of Josh Allen, earning the highest protection grade on the Bills' O-line. With the bubbling talent of Josh Allen seemingly about to boil over, I could see Josh Allen break out in 2020, leading the Bills into the playoffs behind an MVP performance that utilizes his electric legs and big arm. And finally, my number one hot take for the upcoming 2020 NFL season is that the Dallas Cowboys will make the NFC Conference Championship game. Starting on the offensive side of the football, the Cowboys potentially have the best offense in the NFC, second only to the mighty Saints. Their wide receivers are loaded with 2020 first-round pick CeeDee Lamb, newly re-signed Amari Cooper on a 5-year, $100 million contract, and Michael Gallup. The Cowboys quarterback, Dak Prescott, is a top 10 quarterback in the NFL, and anyone who tells you otherwise is simply wrong. Dak is a tremendous leader and football player, capable of making all sorts of plays on the football field with his strong arm and underrated mobility. Although he may not be worth the $40 million a year he wants, he deserves a lot more credit than he's given. Furthermore, the Cowboys have a potentially top 3 running back in the NFL in Ezekiel Elliott, the former first-round pick from Ohio State. Elliott is a dynamic game changer that the Cowboys offense leans on to be successful. Furthermore, Blake Jarwin, Dallas' starting tight end, has emerged as a consistently solid option for Dak in the passing game. And don't forget the top O-line even after Pro Bowl center Travis Frederick retired. Tyron Smith, Zach Martin, and Lyle Collins are all Pro Bowl-type players that are the heart and soul of the Cowboys' success. With them healthy, the offense will be able to accomplish almost anything. Defensively, the Cowboys lost Robert Quinn and Byron Jones in free agency, but managed to replace them with Neville Gallimore and Trayvon Diggs in the draft. Also, with DeMarcus Lawrence, Jalen Smith, Leighton Vander Esch, and Sean Lee, as well as free agent signings Dante Repo, Gerald McCoy, and Clinton Dix, the Cowboys have a potentially top 10 defensive unit. With the Cowboys signing Aldon Smith, the former 49er who had taken a hiatus from the NFL, the Cowboys have some former Pro Bowl talent on their D-line. Although the Cowboys still may struggle in the secondary, their front seven are elite enough to cause havoc in the pocket. Therefore, with the Cowboys having so much talent on the roster, I see it hard for them not to find success in 2020. Playing in the very winnable NFC East, the Cowboys will only have to win 1 or 2 playoff games to reach the NFC Conference Championship game, depending on what seed they are. Although that is much easier said than done, the Cowboys are better than potential NFC playoff teams like the Cardinals, Bucs, Eagles, Vikings, and even Packers, after the Packers didn't give Aaron Rodgers any real help during the draft. Plus, the Cowboys' talented roster could give Super Bowl contenders like the 49ers, Seahawks, and Saints a run for their money. With perhaps an upset or two, I think it's within the realm of possibility that the Cowboys reach the NFC Championship game next season. Now that you've reached the end of the video, I want to thank you for watching, like and subscribe, and please leave your comments down below.